Alright guys, welcome, and this is how to get a 1550 plus on the SAT. So basically like either a perfect score or a near perfect score, and this is coming from someone who's gotten a 1580 on the SAT, so that's like, like 20 points off, like 2 questions off. Perfect. So here we go. Alright, so before we begin, I just want to discuss like why I'm making this video, and it's because I've been asked by like a lot of my friends, like how did you get that score, like how did you find time to study and this and that, because like you don't have to be like a nerd to get a high score like that. You don't need to have to be like antisocial and like be spending like dozens of hours like every single week just studying. Like it's actually possible to get these scores, and like you can be like a normal person. So that's kind of why I want to get into it, because a lot of people want to go to the States from Canada where I live, and there's other people in the States, my friends, just trying to ask like how did you get such a high score. So these are my tips. Alright, so this is how you're going to approach the calculator and no calculator sections of the SAT. So basically for the first section, the no calculator section, you're going to want to have 10 minutes left before the portion ends right on your test, just to revise every single question. And on the calculator section, you're going to want to have between 20 to 30 minutes left. So what that means is the no calculator section, you have to practice to the point where you're going to be able to do the entire thing in 15 minutes. Now, because the entire section has 25, it's going to leave you with 10 minutes to just go back to every single question and quickly revise it. Now, like, because we're human and we're not robots, like, this is really critical that you become so efficient at doing these math questions, so at the end you're going to have the time to go back and check every single question. And this is the same for the calculator section, because you're going to want to finish the entire thing in like 35 minutes to leave you with 20, 25, 30 minutes at the end to go over everything. Now, like, if you came here to expect like some sort of like gimmick or like trick, like obviously that's not gonna happen. But in terms of like how I studied for the math section, every time on a practice test you get like a question wrong, what you're gonna want to do is like write down the exact same question, the exact same answer choices in like a book, and like write down the entire solution of like how to get there. And every single time you do another practice test, you're gonna wanna look at all the questions you've ever gotten wrong, go through them, like unless you've like completely memorized them, and you never wanna get the same type of question wrong a second time, because like questions repeat on the SAT and like the numbers just change. So as long as, like, say there's 50 types of questions you don't know, then like, okay, spend 1 month, 2 months, and you go through all the 50 types of questions you don't know, and like you keep revising them. By the end of the 2 months, you're going to be able to get every single question right every single time. And the more you practice, the quicker you're going to get. So basically, like, we're not robots, so you might make a mistake like on your first try, but if you're so practiced that you can finish the entire section in like half the time, right, 3/4 of the time, you're going to be able to go back and check all your answers, and that is the key to getting an 800 in the math section of the SAT. Alright, now we're going to get into the reading and writing sections of the SAT. With like the reading was actually my least favorite section, because like it was like completely, like they could throw like a curveball at you with like the kind of passage they throw at you. But honestly, like I realized like if you're weak in the reading section, like we'll start with that, like the reading section, it's most likely because you're not focused enough in terms of deep reading comprehension. So what I noticed is that I didn't necessarily change my strategy in terms of reading it. Like I made like minor tweaks here and there, but over the course of my preparation, like I went from doing like really bad to just improving every single time. And I realized like, okay, why am I improving? Like literally like yesterday I'd be getting a bad score. I didn't change anything. Today I'm getting a better score. And the reason is that like with our phones and like kind of the world we live in right now, like we're so distracted all the time. So when we come into like a passage like on the SAT, it's so hard to actually, like you think you're doing it right, but like it's so hard to actually deeply concentrate on every single sentence and not miss like a single word, right? Because like with our phones, like we look at a picture on Instagram in like 5 seconds and like scroll by and this and that. We're like used to getting distracted. But now we're on a passage where like for 65 minutes straight, we need to be able to read and answer questions. So we can't be getting distracted like every other sentence, right? Like we can't like zone out for like one sentence, focus for another two, because that's what's gonna kill you on the reading section of the SAT. Basically what I do recommend is spending less time on your phone as the test approaches, and like the more time you spend deeply reading, and this is like completely practicing, right? Like there's no tips, there's no tricks. The more time you spend deeply reading, the more your brain becomes accustomed to just maintaining concentration and focus for like the amount of time necessary to do well on the test. And that's basically the secret to doing that test. Like put your phone away, concentrate, because like we're not dumb, right? Like if you were to read those passages, you would understand like what's going on. But the issue is that we're not reading it deep enough and we're not concentrating. And the other thing is that sometimes we miss certain points, and like even though like we're deeply concentrated, and that's because we are not necessarily relaxed when we're reading it. So that's an issue I had. I would be like stressed coming into the test because like I knew that was like my weakest section, reading, right? Like even though I got a 780 on the reading and writing sections combined, it was my weakest section. Like so I'd be like super stressed coming into it, and even though I was like completely understanding what was going on in the story, I'd be too stressed to miss like the little nuances, like the little jokes, the little hints, the little, witty remarks that the characters would make that would actually add to the plot. So we really need to go into the test and into practice, not only concentrating deeply, but like in a more relaxed kind of mindset in order to be able to pick up on like the little details here and there while grasping the main point. Alright, now the writing section. So this is going to be like one of the more straightforward sections to study for, because you're going to want to get like one of a couple of books on the market. Like I'll show you at the end of the video, but like there's a couple of books that will just go through all of the different grammar rules that they're going to test, and like by the end of like reading those books and doing the exercise problems, like you're gonna have no problem with it. Like it's actually the easiest section to kind of master in terms of like the time it'll take. So I'll at the end of the video I'll talk about some of the books that I used to study and like put them in the description so you guys can find it. Alright guys, now let me talk about basically like my general study plan, like habits, like how I went into the test. So like for like 5 months before, I started like lightly studying, so it wasn't anything serious, and that's an issue, right? You want to be seriously studying for the SAT or you're gonna get nothing out of it. So I was like, like every weekend, like an hour or two, just like, cruising through some books. But it was really like 40 days before the test where I'm like, okay, like let's get into gear. 30 days before the test, and I started working like 2-3 hours every day after school. With like the last 3-4 days, I take like classes off just to study, right? And like it's a necessary sacrifice, but it makes a lot of sense, because if you basically crunch your studying into like a short period of time, right? But like you go like crazy for that amount of time, then you basically save yourself a lot of like time relatively, because it's like, okay, you didn't spend like a month just like studying like, kind of shaky, but you spent like, okay, like you spent like 2 weeks like really going hard into it. So now you basically saved 2 weeks of your life because you just went harder for that other 2 weeks. Like that's the kind of analogy I like to use. So you're gonna want to really crunch it out for like the last 30 days before your test. And what I did was I first made sure like I mastered the math section, because that's literally like half the test, and that's like an easier section to master. And then I went into writing, but 2 weeks before the test I was just focused on reading because that was like my weaker section. You're gonna want to change up your study plan like according to like what you think is the weaker section, right? You kind of want to have your stronger sections mastered, and then like the last 2 weeks you're gonna just want to go at the weaker section to like perfect it. So by the end of your study period, by the test date, you're gonna be able to be prepared for everything. And alright guys, that's it basically. Like that's how I got like my score. I can talk about like how I did on my essay and this and that, because I got a 4.34 essay, which amounts to like a 22 out of 24. And I could talk about like more in depth if you guys want. Like you guys can like put that in the comments if you really care. But let me just go over the books. Yeah, definitely. So the first book I used was by the College Panda, and it was the writing book. And this one definitely went over all of the writing rules for me. And it was actually really helpful to have this alongside the Princeton Review like complete SAT. I'm not sure what it's called. I'll put a picture right there too, and there'll be of course like a link in the description. So I used those two, which completely talks about all the grammar rules one by one. And by the end of that, like I kind of wasn't missing any questions on the writing test. So in terms of what I did for math, so all I did was honestly get the original book by the College Board, and I would just go through every single question, right? And anytime I got a question wrong, like I said, I just write it down in a notebook, so I'd review it like before the test and like before other practice tests. And finally for reading, I believe I went through like a different book by the Princeton Review. It was just like 6 or 9 practice tests, and like I would just keep reading them, and every time I'd actually improve because like I'd improve my concentration, and like I'd pick up on like the types of questions I was getting wrong. So like next time I'd be like, okay, like this is like kind of the way the test wants me to answer this kind of question. So you kind of get to learn the words, you kind of get to learn the tricks that the test throws at you, and by the end of that, you'll be on your way to your perfect score. Alright guys, so thanks for listening, and like let me know in the comments if you guys want me to explain anything else. This was like completely an experiment just making this video, to be honest. Like I hope it really helped you guys, so later.